what is VA doing for us as employees, and what is VA doing for its customers with disabilities? And the answer at that time was nothing.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of our WCAT podcast, Spilling the Tea on Digital Accessibility. Today, we have someone really interesting, really fun with us, Marcia. She is one of our project managers. Marcia, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Hello, everybody. I'm Marcia Hutchinson, and I've been with Accessibility since, about November of last year. And it's my dream to be involved in accessibility full time. So, really glad to be here and also participate in your podcast.
Yeah, awesome. So, just a fun fact about Marcia. Um, she joined us in November, and then the following March, so about 4 months later, I met her in person for the first time when we attended CSUN together, representing AO. And she's really well put together, very professional, um, you know, and I was really impressed. And then we heard that Stevie Wonder was there, and she went from the consummate professional to a shaking fangirl, and I poke fun of her at her all the time about it. But it was really really awesome. And for those of you who don't know, we actually got a picture with Stevie Wonder. And Marcia, you got to put your arm around Stevie, didn't you?
Yeah, it was. I mean, talk about bucket list too. He's definitely one of my heroes musically, and we ran into him and organically made a video. We asked, you said, "Mr. Wonder, can we have a photo?" And he's like, "Let's do it." And he put his arm around me and Marissa, and yeah, I'll never be the same.
Yeah. The funny thing is that people were swarming the guy, and he had gotten tired, and so we're like, you know what, it's not in the cards, it's fine, we don't want to overwhelm him. So that we were literally leaving, and then he was just standing, like he was like standing off to the side, right? And then we just happened to come across him with no one, like, swarming him. And so that's what she means by organically. So yeah, she got to scratch that bucket list. I was teasing Marcia at the seaside, and I was like, "Oh yeah, you went to the bathroom, and Stevie came by, and we were doing a duet, and you missed it all." She didn't fall for it though, but that's the one fun thing about Marcia. But can you just share with us a little about what you do here at AO? Because we've interviewed test managers, but not really a true project manager. So we'd love to hear kind of your take on a few of your job responsibilities, what it's like to, first off, interface with clients who know nothing about digital accessibility, and then also to interface with a team that is predominantly disabled.
Right. Yeah. It's a really great experience. This role is sort of a perfect combination. You get a lot of client contact. So you're the face of the accessibility officer to the clients.
Mhm.
So you're informing them of how things are going, working with them on budgets, schedules, timing, any questions they might have. And then you're working on the back end with the testers and the test managers to make sure everything executes from the audit to logging all of the accessibility issues. So I love it. I get to interface with both sides of the house. When I first started with the accessibility officer, I I was working with the city of New York, and so very very big accounts, but a really well established account. So they had been a client for a while for accessibility officer, but it was a really big undertaking to learn all of the nuances of supporting that account. They are a large team, a large amount of developers, many different properties, as you can imagine, on the New York City websites and digital properties. So that's been a big challenge, but a very rewarding challenge. And then also to come along and work on additional clients that are brand new, smaller cities, smaller municipalities. That's really fun because they are starting from scratch. They don't know what they know and they're scared. And all they know is that they want to be accessible. And so bringing them along, teaching them, holding their hand, if you will, building credibility and just building rapport so they feel like they're in good hands. And yeah, I really enjoy the role.
Awesome. Um, and then what is
Yeah,
it
life from
like?
the
Ooh,
oh,
sorry. Go
sorry.
ahead, Ellie. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say you kind of got that introduction to the company culture right from the interview. Because I'll never forget the day that you got interviewed because Tanner messaged me about like 15 minutes before your interview and was like,
Mm.
"Hey, can you go on this interview with me?" And I was laying in bed. Like I'm not even
Oh,
kidding. It was like 8 in the morning for me and like 6:30 for you, which like hats off to you being on the West Coast getting up that early for an interview.
Yeah, what a champ.
Um,
I would never do
but
that.
yeah, yeah, that's some dedication right there. And so he's like, "Hey, can you come on this interview with me?" And I operate under the general rule of if my boss tells me to jump, I'm going to jump. Um, so got up, got myself together, got on the interview, and I was right away like super impressed with you and your skills and your knowledge of scoping projects out and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, it must have been kind of interesting for you getting interviewed by a blind guy and his blind employee right from the
yeah.
get-go.
Yeah, it was a great experience, and I do remember that day, Ellie. And not only that, but working with the team on an ongoing basis, it's just been really educational for me. And it feels like this culture is very inviting and very warm. And now I don't eat like it, we're all embedded and we're all a team, and it just feels so natural to work with persons with disabilities, and it in lockstep. And I think the advice I would give to anyone that might be intimidated by working with anyone with a disability is just be open and just treat them like you would treat anyone else, and it's going to become natural and fluid and a very rewarding relationship.
Absolutely. And I think I mean, even goes beyond if you're going to step into an environment that is with disability people with disabilities. It's just any job opportunity or any other opportunity that comes along. Just be open because not everyone's going to um, be on your same wavelength, and I think that's okay. I think the differences among us is what makes us all unique. Because, Ellie and I, like from a testing perspective, Ellie and I come at testing very differently. I'm very methodical, and she writes like a poet. And so it's two totally sets of we have the same knowledge, but two totally different ways at which we come at the problem. And I think that can help balance each other out. And I think that's what's beautiful about our company because we're not trying to create cookie cutter testers. We give you the knowledge, but we give you free reign to, I guess, be yourself when it comes to accessibility. So yeah, definitely agree with that. And then Marcia, you had mentioned to me that you were building a house. Can you kind of just talk about that? Because I think that's really freaking awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been quite a journey over the last, well, nine or so months. We're
Hmm.
basically 2 weeks away from getting the keys. So,
Oh man.
um,
So cool.
yeah, yeah, it is cool. Yeah, definitely life's transition. Life
Mm,
goes through phases, and I'm moving to a different part of California, and I'm ready for it. So, um, yeah, just ready to explore new municipalities and where I can
mhm,
perhaps have an impact on the larger and even the smaller municipalities that I'm moving into, especially from an
mhm,
accessibility standpoint.
Mm.
But yes, the process has been a long one. I've never done it before. If I've ever moved, I've either rented or moved into an existing, dwelling.
Yeah.
And starting from scratch, I've had to think about a lot of things. Accessibility was certainly one of them. I'm thinking about the the older generation, the previous
Mm.
generation, being with me and what they
Hmm.
are I need, as they have mobility issues and
Hmm.
need accessible, let's say, accessible grab bars in the shower,
Hmm.
so they're safe. So
Absolutely.
all of
Yep.
these things, door width being wide enough, and I'm just have a very different lens as I'm going through this process to make sure not only I'm comfortable in the space, but anyone can come into the space and be comfortable. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a journey. I'm excited, and yeah, uh,
So
next
in 2 weeks,
chapter
I
is
expect
beginning.
to get, yeah, so in 2 weeks, I expect to get an invite to your housewarming party, right? Is that correct?
Sure,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Well, give me
You
some
know,
time to unpack.
Yeah.
so my stepdad is a builder, and
Oh, cool.
my stepbrother, who's unfortunately passed, was born with severe spina bifida, um, and he was in a wheelchair his whole 3 years that he was alive, and my stepdad's house was built with accessibility in mind, and I think the thing that people just don't seem to realize until they've built it or they've seen it is that universally accessible design is actually super nice just for everyone. Like anyone could slip in the shower and fall, right? Like it doesn't matter how old you are. You drop the soap at the wrong time, your foot hits the wrong area of the floor and down
Mhm.
you go. Like it,
Yeah.
having a grab bar there is wonderful for anyone. And I
Mhm.
can tell you, I love the shower that they have in their house because it's like a roll-in kind of shower. It's almost like a little separate room, and it's amazing. Like I
Nice.
much prefer it to this regular shower tub
Hmm.
combo that I have in my apartment.
So that's really interesting. I am not a like to put it like bluntly, and I apologize. My intent is not to offend anyone. I am not a very masculine man. Well, I try to be, but I don't know how to do a lot of things that a lot of people know how to do that have vision, like I don't know, changing oil in a car or stuff like that, right? I don't know how to do any of that stuff. So every opportunity I can get, I like to put things together, and so I can't even fathom the puzzle of trying to build a home, right? You've got to map it out, then you've got to make sure that the foundation is even first, and so on and so forth. And I can't even imagine all the different factors that go into it. So that's, you have definitely my respect because that is I'm very impressed, and anyone who does that, right? I think that's a marvelous thing to do because you get to plan out what your forever home is going to be like. That's what I like the most.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
A little bit different than putting together the shelving unit from IKEA,
Yeah,
right?
just a little bit,
Which
just a little bit.
which nobody thinks about how inaccessible the instructions are for those things. Like
Mhm.
I know my husband, and it boggles my brain how you quote unquote unmasculine blind men manage to figure out how these pieces fit together to build something without ever being able to look at the manual. And even if you can find an accessible PDF of the instructions,
It doesn't help.
oftentimes they're just a key and pictures.
Hmm. I think and it all comes back to the mindset because this is sort of similar to how I test manually. I compile an inventory of all my parts. So then, in terms of digital accessibility, I compile, hey, I have a web page, I have these testing tools. Now let's take it section by section. First, I know that it's a desk with three drawers. So let's just build the drawers first. I can set them aside. And so in terms of digital accessibility, I know that this web page is split into three main sections, the header, the main content, and the footer. Let's handle the header first, make sure there's nothing inaccessible there, and then just take it methodically, right? You have the pieces to the drawers, like the softer, thinner wood that creates the bottom of the drawers, and then generally the front of the drawer where it comes out towards you, if you're putting a drawer in and out, is a little taller than the sides and back. And so you kind of know these things just from experiencing it time after time. And then it's the same thing as recognizing, oh, hey, this search button um has a an ARIA label of search, but a visual label of submit. How do I know that? Because when I navigated to the SEARCH, I hit insert F with my keyboard and it tells me the font that there is no font. And so I'm assuming that's an ARIA label. I'm going to check it, what the inner text says, and it says submit. So it's little things like that, that mindset of being just very methodical, that has gotten me at least this far. Of course, it probably might take me, you know,
That's a great
like
analogy.
10 hours to build a simple desk, but I'm also very, very stubborn. It'll get done eventually, even if that means
Yeah.
that my kids and my blind wife have to do an obstacle course throughout the house.
Yep.
So
And that search slash submit button that's got the well, label and name issue, it's kind of
that's
like
right.
you trying to fit the someone went and put a square peg into a round hole and
Yeah,
it's not matching
absolutely.
up. It's a great
Yep.
analogy. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Marcia, can you just elaborate a little bit more about like who you are? Oh, first off, actually, um, before you worked at AO, what did you do? And does those job responsibilities differ from what you're doing now?
Well, there are differences, but there are similarities.
Hmm.
So just before accessibility officer, I was at a company called VMware,
Hmm.
and VMware is kind of where my origin story into accessibility began.
Mm.
So I like to tell the story. I spent a large majority of my career in tech working on globalization or localization. So
Hmm.
that's about taking products and marketing materials and product documentation and all the things that are digital assets, and those are often developed in English. But if you're a global company, you have to support customers in the various regions and across the languages in those regions. So I was managing a program to make content accessible, to people across the world. But accessibility wasn't really on my radar per se.
Hmm.
And so what ended up happening in that program, as part of working with that program, there was a senior director who was my stakeholder, my internal stakeholder at VMware. And
Gotcha.
she was nominated to participate in a Stanford project called LEAD. So, the Graduate School of Business at Stanford has these programs where they engage with companies in the Silicon Valley to bring high performing managers into these programs and teach them to do better, teach them to learn and be better leaders. And so this director was in this program, and she came to me one day and she said, "Marcia, would you join my thesis team for this?" And basically, at the end of this year-long program, they have to come up with a project to disrupt their company. How are you going to lead
Hmm.
and disrupt your company? And so she invited me onto a four-person team, and my journey into accessibility started at a lunch meeting one day where there was four of us sitting around the table, and we were talking to ourselves, how can we disrupt VMware? What is VMware not doing well? And each and every one of us in that room was impacted either directly or indirectly by disability. And it was a safe space for us to talk about that because some of us had hidden disabilities, that
Hmm.
non-apparent disabilities, and it
Absolutely.
was a safe space for us to open up about that. And we said, what is VMware doing for us as employees, and what is VMware doing for its customers with disabilities? And the answer at that time was nothing. So that was where it started for me. And
Mm.
so we went to essentially HR. And as what's very interesting about this, within a week of us going to HR saying, "Hey, we want to build out a program for employees around
Hmm.
accessibility awareness, and I'll, also work on the environments around here that are inaccessible. They said, hey, guess what? The R&D team, the engineering part of VMware, just hired within 2 weeks accessibility employee number one to make
Mm.
the products accessible. And do you know who that accessibility employee number one was at VMware?
Was
Sherry
it Sherry?
Burnhaber. Sherry Burnhaber. So that's where Sherry and I began to connect and cross paths. So she was part of it all, but really part of developing the world class accessibility organization that VMware had to make its products accessible. And then our team, as part of that lead thesis project, spun up what was became to known as Disability at VMware, the employee resource group. We called it we called it a pod at VMware, but it was an ERG group.
Mhm.
Spun it up from scratch. We had 1,000 members by the time all was said and done. We built training. We Some of my best memories about that was some of the like dignitaries we would bring in to as part of to talk to VMware. So we had people come in virtually. All of it was virtually. This was kind of all happening during the pandemic side of things as well. But we had Judy Hillman. So if anybody knows anything about um, people who are just founding um, dignitaries in disability, it's Judy Hillman. We
Mhm.
had uh, let's see, we had um, I'm stumbling a little bit, but please edit this out. We had Haben Girma, she's from the Bay Area. She was the first blind deaf person to graduate from Harvard, and she's incredible. We also had Matlin come and talk to us.
Oh, wow.
If you know who Marley Matlin is, she's the deaf actress. So I got to meet a lot of really interesting people and also educate VMware and its employees, built a whole training program around it. And then for me, in my globalization role, I wasn't exactly doing audits just to start because I was still working on deploying content in language. But I started saying, hey, we've got to make this content accessible because then all of a sudden I was seeing the content. And at the time, I was building interactive multimedia education courses for our sales force, and they weren't accessible. And as I
Mm.
was starting to learn more about accessibility, I'm like, hold on here. And so I started to have an impact. And that was really fun to see the impact that we had across the company. Unfortunately, VMware was basically bought out by another company.
Mhm.
So VMware actually no longer truly exists, and many of us that left VMware, with a heavy heart because we did. I mean, what we accomplished in less than 5 years was, I believe, nothing short of a miracle. We had a lot of impact, all the way from the product side, making the products accessible so that we could sell to our federal customers and customers who were mandated by federal regulation to be accessible. That was incredible, but also knowing the impact that we had on our employees and educating
Yeah,
them, but also making them feel safe. So
absolutely.
um, that ended my chapter at VMware, and of course with Sherry knew Tanner from
Hmm.
our founder and CEO, from the accessibility circles, and she had heard that
Hmm.
he had a project manager role open. And I guess she said to Tanner, talk to Marcia. She's pretty, and here I am. And also, I think we've already had a podcast with Sherry, so
We
Sherry's here
did.
now too, and I get to work with
Yep.
my mentor, and yeah,
It's the
it's been
dream
an
team.
amazing journey for sure.
Hmm. Yeah, so thank you so much. I loved hearing that story, loving. I think it's always so interesting to hear people who are not previously involved in digital accessibility kind of step into the space out of their own accord, right? I love that. Like there was no cajoling to get you into this space. You just wanted to make sure that your fellow employees were living in a were working in a safe space, and that was your predetermining factor. And then now you're here working with a team who's like 85% disabled. I think that's awesome. And for those of you who don't know, Marcia does so much for us. She's she's like a little bit like Marissa. We had an episode with Marissa in the sense that they are the glue that holds us testers together. They're the people who interface with the clients to make sure that our work gets to the client in a way that the client can understand and interface with, so the client can make the requisite changes and get that part of their websites and their digital components accessible. So I don't think that you guys get enough thanks for sure. Because we just do the grunt work, but it's you guys who push along that agenda and continue to give us more work. So just want to say thank you for that. And I know that Ellie likes to close us off with a couple of words, but I do have something that I want to share with you guys as a piece of advice. But first, let me just say thank you to all our listeners. Thank you to all of our subscribers. We appreciate all of the interactions and engagement going on. There will be more episodes to come. I hope you continue to enjoy the content. If you have ideas on things you would like to hear about in terms of digital accessibility, please let us know in the comments. Reach out to us. We're an open book. We take in everyone's advice, and we put it to practice. So I did hear today that we have two new listeners from India. That was awesome to hear. Shout out to all the listeners from Italy, Finland, China, Korea. You guys are awesome. Really appreciate you guys listening. Again, another shout out for our listeners across the pond in the UK. Hopefully, you guys are loving the content so far. And then again, love the engagement. Derek Hodricourt, want to shout you out for continually engaging with us, letting us know what you think of the podcast. Specifically in episode 4 where we interviewed Todd Elsey. Uh, Danny Rogers, awesome. Love the communication that you're having with us. Keep it up. And also want to say thank you to Brandy Moore for commenting on our podcast. I love that so much. I mean, it still boggles my mind that people are listening to Ellie and I ramble for anywhere from 15 to 45 minutes, and that people are downloading and listening, and it's extremely humbling. So thank you guys so much. And the last thing I want to close you guys out with, as we close this podcast episode, is that for those of you who don't know, Marcia came to our program, already having some prior experience with WCAG and digital accessibility because she worked with the myth, the legend, Sherry Bernhaver. But she actually attended some of our CAT courses as a silent listener. And I can't tell you um, how awesome I found that to be because she was trying to inure herself into the company's culture, into how we taught things, into the way we do things. And the best way to do that is to jump in with both feet and get hands-on practice. And she was doing it. She was doing the exercises along with the CAT students at the same time. And I just find that to be so amazing. So so do what Marcia is doing. Follow her example. Dive in with both feet. If you are hesitant because of an opportunity, if you're hesitant to take that opportunity on, please follow Marcia's example. Dive in both feet. Understand the culture you're about to step into, right? Do your due diligence, your research, and then talk to the people there to make sure that you understand how that company does its business, how things get done, and make yourself a part of that family essentially. So that's kind of my piece of advice. Ellie, I'm so sorry for stealing your thunder. I just really wanted to share that and to tell Marcia how appreciated she is, and to tell the world that we appreciate Marcia and people like her who you know, does not have a severe disability, but chose to step into this space because she saw an opportunity and chose to help. So do as Marcia does. Thank you guys all for listening, and we will see you on the next episode. Spill the tea on digital accessibility.
Subscribe to the WCAT WeCat podcast on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Links below.